Yo, what's going on guys, HyperX here, welcome back to another Division video. It's the weekend, which of course means I am back to tell you guys what is new in the Dark Zone safe rooms, what new blueprints there are, and of course what is on sale in the base operations, the terminal and the underground, and of course whether or not any of that is worth your time. So as always, if you do enjoy this, then a like would be super appreciated. Comment down below, let me know your thoughts. Also, do bear in mind, for the next month or so, it's going to be really hard for me to recommend anything unless it's absolutely outstanding, because as you guys know, for 1.4 there are going to be some pretty big changes. We don't know what those changes are or to what extent the game will be changed, but with those big changes on the horizon, it's one of those things where you're probably a lot better off, especially if you're kind of end game and you've got like a relatively decent gear set and you've got a relatively decent build. It's probably worth just kind of biding your time and saving up on, you know, materials, currency, all that stuff like that, because we really don't know how drastically things are going to change. So unless something really stands out, I'm not really going to recommend it, but I will still do these videos anyway because I know you guys do appreciate them. So, starting off in DZ02, you of course have your gear pieces, stamina backpack, electronics vest, electronics gloves, and stamina mask this week. So, generally speaking, nothing really stand out there. Electronics gloves, possibly, but yeah. Those are your gear pieces. 204, nothing particularly exciting there. So, moving on to DZ03, this is where you get your weapons. First up, you have the 229 weapon, just outright weapon, no blueprint, the military M60E4, and this has dominant, fierce, and commanding. Not very exciting talent combination. Yes, fierce is alright, but generally speaking, dominant, commanding, not a massive fan of. So moving on to the blueprints, you have a tactical AUG A3P and a custom M44. Of course, both of those are 204, so unless you're running some kind of Alpha Bridge build, then not particularly worth it. Plus, these have been around so many times by now, so if you were going to grab an AUG or an M44, you've probably already got it. So moving on to DZ04, Electronics Gear Mod Blueprint and Firearms Gear Mod Blueprint. Now these, I would imagine, are pretty safe. These, if you haven't got them by now, are definitely worth purchasing because, of course, level 32 gear mods have a higher potential. And of course, if you are using them to bolster any part of your build, which of course you will be, then it's definitely worth having the level 32 versions. So if you don't have either of these, it probably is worth picking them up, especially if you are spec'd for, say, Firearms. So yeah, that's probably a safe bet. So then moving on to DZ05, actually the same as last week. So the CQBSS Scope FDE Blueprint and the Quick Release Magazine. The scope has headshot damage as the kind of fixed perk plus 1 random, so that's actually pretty nice if you have a weapon that supports the CQBSS Scope. And the Quick Release Magazine, not really something we are particularly a fan of. We're much more interested in extended magazines, which when that does come around, if you haven't got it, definitely do get that one. This is a lot more about reload speed, whereas I would much rather grab extended magazine, weapon damage, all that stuff. So yeah, not a massive one here. So moving over to the base of operations outside the Dark Zone. This week there is a Black Market RPK-74E and a SCAR-L. Now the Black Market RPK has Unforgiving, Stable, and Adept, so really not an exciting set of talents there, so I'm not even going to waste my time talking about that one. The SCAR-L is kind of interesting, not because you would necessarily use it as a primary, it's 204 obviously, but it does have accurate, self-preserved, and commanding. Now accurate is good on assault rifles, self-preserved is actually pretty good, not necessarily as a primary talent, so you know, for example, if you were running like a 229 assault rifle, I wouldn't necessarily roll self-preserved on that. However, as you guys know, lower gear score weapons do of course open the doors to Alpha Bridge builds, and they can have certain utility. So if you were to throw this on as a secondary weapon in an Alpha Bridge build using assault rifles, maybe with the G36 as your primary, then accurate and self-preserved are good ones to hang on to, and you could then roll out commanding, which is also your third talent, your free talent. So if you've got something else in there, like a really good talent, maybe something that is notoriously harder to unlock, maybe it's a little bit outside of the spec of your build, then throw it on the third slot, and you could actually have a really viable weapon as a secondary slot weapon for an Alpha Bridge build. So worth considering, but only if you run one of those very specific builds, and again, only if you are looking for things to burn. Moving over to the terminal, you then have a Black Market SASG-12S and a SOCOM M1A. The SASG has Predatory, Self-Preserved, and Talented. Self-Preserved isn't quite as useful on a shotgun. Predatory can be quite nice, and Talented, not really that interested in that talent to be honest. So moving over to the SOCOM, this one has a horrendous set of talents. Adept is alright, but Toxic is just terrible. Those ones are like really interesting talents that I wish had much more utility, but they just don't, so we don't really care about that. And then of course it has Trained as well, but yeah, generally speaking, not a great weapon, not a great set of talents, so also not worth your time, and it's 204, so there's no real loss there. Also in the terminal, the other vendor, there is an Electronics Gear Mod Blueprint, so again, same sentiment as the Dark Zone. If you don't have it and you run Electronics, then it's definitely worth having the level 32 version. So finally, moving to the Underground, you have two PP19s this week. An Enhanced PP19 as your 229 and a PP19 as your 204. The Enhanced PP19 has Swift, Dominant, and Hurried. Again, not a particularly exciting set of skills, especially not for an SMG when you consider some of the better options out there. And, you know, while yes, you can roll out one of them, I wouldn't say rolling out one talent at the recalibration station would make this a good set. So generally speaking, I'd rather just farm the Underground until I get one to drop, which will probably have a slightly better roll. So ignoring that, you then also have the 204 one, the flat PP19 with Fierce, Capable, and Hurried. Fierce is nice, admittedly, with a little bit of a steep unlock requirement, and of course the other two, again, not particularly exciting, so really nothing actually that great this week. There are a couple of things at a stretch, like the Scar, maybe, and, you know, some of the mods and whatnot, but generally speaking, there definitely aren't any really standout weapons, so honestly, save your money, save your materials, save all that stuff this week, and just wait until next week. So, hopefully you guys enjoyed the video. If you did, then a like would be super appreciated. I'll also have another Division video dropping probably on Monday to talk about some other stuff. And thanks again for watching. Take it easy. Catch you next time. Peace out.